I meant to ask last night, but do either of you know anything about that plant you gave my mother for the soup?
Lucian, Ridge, Eleonora, and Hywel trekked through the woods adjacent to the city of Giardia toward Azure Lake, an apparent hotspot for game animals according to Ridge. The surrounding trees were colored in distinct shades of rustic orange, and with each step Lucian felt the slight crunches of leaves beneath his feet. Autumn was upon the Vanaros Empire, marking the end of the abundance of summer. Eleonora led the way through the woods, following a weathered trail that snaked through the dense underbrush.
Oh my! You had the famous Faust family soup without me? I'm jealous.
Wait. Soup? I thought it was stew.
No, Ridge. It was clearly soup.
No way. Elvira herself called it stew. If the person making it said it's stew, it's stew.
We kind of just use the words interchangeably. I mean, they're pretty much the same thing, aren't they?
No, what are you talking about? They're completely different.
Anyway, so about this secret ingredient?
I'm not sure, quite honestly. Our parents gave it to us, but they didn't say anything about its origin. Only that your mother needed it.
Oh man, I thought you'd know. Guess I'll be waiting on that recipe after all. And just when I was getting the craving for another helping of soup.
Yeah, that's enough of that. Eleonora, are we quite there yet? My feet are killing me, and this talk of delicious food isn't exactly helping. I'm starting to think I should have just stayed home today.
Hywel brought up the rear of the group. His forehead was stained with sweat that matted his hair and gave the unusually handsome prince quite the disheveled appearance. Eleonora laughed heartily as she turned to face him. With a playful grin on her face, she poked the young prince in the arm before addressing him as a mentor would their student.
Oh dear Prince Hywel. How do you ever expect to take the throne one day if you can't even go on a simple hike?
For your information, this is no simple hike. I feel like we've been walking for half the day.
Ridge regarded Hywel's declaration for a moment, as Eleonora chuckled to herself. Lucian followed Ridge's gaze up to the sky to the small cracks of light that the space between the tree branches provided.
It may have felt like a long time, but we've only really been walking for, about an hour.
What the? How do you know?
Well, you might think of me as your slightly loud, yet equally charming friend. Out here, I'm the king. No one can weave their way through these woods quite like I can.
Well, yeah, I knew you were good, but not good enough to just know what time it is at random.
It's not random. It's actually pretty simple. You've just got to figure out where the sun is in the sky and then go from there. Watch.
Hywel and Lucian stared intently at Ridge as he traced his way around the clearing's branches. His fingers seemed to dance right along the outlines as he expertly tracked the light across the canopy.
All you gotta do is follow the line along right here, then here, and finally right there. And there you go. You can figure out the time of day just like that.
To be honest, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I suppose I'll try it.
Hywel raised his arm in the air and began waving his finger about in a wild flurry of motion. His attempts to copy Ridge were desperate ones, but try as he might, he was unable to pinpoint any sort of reference. Hywel scowled as the group resumed their hike. His eyes locked on the treetops that Ridge had so easily deciphered. With his frustration ever growing, he turned his full attention toward the hopeless task, failing to notice the upturned log directly in his line of path. Just as Lucian had navigated over the log himself, he heard a crack as Hywel went head over heels over the log and came tumbling down beside him. Eleonora and Ridge whirled around to examine the source of the commotion.
Looks like the young prince took a spill.
Yes, thank you for stating the obvious, Eleonora. Now can you help me up, please?
Sure. Just don't ask me to wash your clothes later.
And now, why on earth would I... Oh.
As Eleonora lifted Hywel to his feet, he glanced down, assessing his state of cleanliness. Mud and leaves caked the entirety of his clothing, and a soiled streak of grime smeared across his right cheek. Eleonora could only bite her tongue to prevent her laughing fit from intensifying.
You may be laughing now, vile woman, but just you watch. I'd say my new look gives me quite the edge when it comes to sneaking up on my prey, even compared to you.
Oh? Is that a challenge? Biggest catch wins?
You're on! Why, you cheating!
As the two disappeared down the path, Ridge and Lucian glanced at each other with a similar look of thought.
Hey, Ridge? Does Hywel even know where the lake is?
Nope.
I thought not. We should probably try to catch up with him, huh?
Agreed.
With a mutual sigh, the two took off behind them, following their trail of dust all the way to the lake. Somehow, through what Lucian could only describe as pure competitive spirit, Hywel was able to keep up with Eleonora's pace. And by the time Ridge and Lucian had arrived at the lake, the two of them were splayed out beside its shore, panting heavily. Lucian couldn't help but crack a smile at their ridiculous competitive spirit.
Well, this certainly feels like old times, doesn't it?
Indeed. I don't believe I've run like that since Eleonora and I pranked those guards. Several years ago, correct?
Was that the time you and I snuck into their quarters and greased the floors?
Indeed. We wanted to see if the metal of their armor would make them slide across the floor, and, well, to be fair, it did.
Right into our hiding spot.
We ran like mad once they crashed into that barrel.
Right into the arms of the Emperor of all people.
Eleonora and Hywel chuckled at the distant memory. Lucian had heard about this event before. It was a common theme among their group. Hywel and Eleonora would get into some sort of trouble, while Ridge and himself were simply along for the ride. Most often than not, this trouble would end in some sort of competition between the two, ending dramatically with the crash of broken furniture or the yell of an angry peasant. It wasn't exactly the type of relationship Lucian had imagined when he'd first met Crown Prince Hywel Garrad and his retainers. But thinking back, he didn't think he'd want it any other way.
I wonder. Hey, Hywel. This is gonna sound kinda random, but is Giadia having a problem with the rogues?
Rogues? What do you mean?
Lucian gave his friends a quick summary of yesterday's events in the merchant quarter, and Esmond Kemp's blatant secrecy following the thief's arrest. When he had finished his story and voiced his concerns of a deeper conspiracy, Hywel rubbed his chin slowly before speaking.
Mother hasn't told me much of anything as of late, but even so, I wholly agree with your line of thinking. There is something suspicious going on around here. It seems every day I see greater numbers of military generals shuffling about the palace. I can't say for certain, but I suspect that tyrant Alec Bran may be up to his intimidation tactics once again.
Alec Bran.
If there was a single figure feared most by the Venarian public, it was Alec Bran, King of Brandoff. Like the Empire, the Brandoff kingdom had split from the influence of the Seigammal following the Great Civil War. In that time, the new human kingdoms lived in harmony, united by their common foe. However, when several of those fledgling kingdoms consolidated into the Voneros Empire, the Brandoff kingdom refused to integrate, creating a tense rivalry between the two. From that rivalry bloomed countless wars, though their outcomes never ended with victory for either side. It was in that sense an endless cycle of death, and not one person embodied that cycle more than Alec Bran, a meticulous warmonger. King Bran used any tactics necessary to destabilize his eternal rival. The current generation of rulers had never formally declared war on each other, but that hadn't stopped skirmishes from breaking out at the border between the two nations. Though Empress Cerridwyn seemed content to quietly bolster her border defenses, King Bran found it more appropriate to send thinly veiled threats to the Empire's court, though those threats were never taken as much more than a scare tactic. Such was the cycle of the Voneros Empire. Such was the cycle of Vaneros and Brandoff. It was commonly accepted between citizens on both sides that a war between the two nations would be detrimental to their growth. So unless given a reason, it would seem inevitable that the two sides would simply sit at a constant state of turmoil. From the little Lucian knew of Alec Bran, hired roguery seemed like a feasible tactic. if not a little petty. Still, since Lucian wasn't exactly familiar with Brandoff culture, he had no reason to doubt Hywel's claims.
Sending a thief to attack citizens in broad daylight? I'd like to give that tyrant king a piece of my mind.
Lucian stood up from the shore and dusted off his pants.
Let me know if you learn anything about that supposed thief, Hywel. Unsurprisingly, I would like to know why I was targeted in an attack.
Of course. I'm just glad to see you're okay.
Ridge and Eleonora nodded in agreement.
At least you got a cool sword out of it.
It is rather unique. I can't say I've ever seen anything quite like it, Lucian. Could you let me study it for a moment?
Lucian complied and unsheathed the sword. In the morning light, its single-bladed edge seemed courageously bright. Eleonora was practically entranced by the majesty before her. Her eyes darted along the edge, sparkling with glee.
Amazing. This is no hunter's blade, I can tell you that much.
Oh, a blade like that could cleave a deer in two. Wouldn't that be a sight?
Lucian agreed with the twins' assessment. Even with his utter lack of experience, he felt unstoppable with the weapon by his side.
I bet I could even give Ophelia a run for her money with this. She wouldn't even know what...
Lucian's thought was interrupted by a rustling coming from a bush some distance away. The others noticed it too. For a split second, Lucian believed it to be an animal. Then emerged a dark figure flanked by two equally imposing companions. Lucian's heart began to race as he shot to high alert. Eleonora and Ridge readied their weapons and locked on to the unknown threat. Lucian pictured the stance his opponent took in battle the day before and did his best to follow suit. After a moment of silence, it was Hywel who made the next move.
Who goes there? By my authority as Crown Prince, I demand you announce yourself.
The lead figure stepped closer to the group, while its companions lagged back. Lucian felt his hand shaking as the figure continued to advance closer. Though Lucian's previous encounters had been greatly unnerving, there was something different about this one. There was a clear, dark energy emanating from the approaching presence. It was fully intrusive, almost constricting Lucian's very soul. Hywel called out once more, but the figure did not attempt to halt its advancement. Hywel grimaced and held up his hand.
Ridge, Eleonora, when I give the signal, fire.
You got it.
Affirmative.
3, 2, 1.
Wait!
Hywel had just begun to drop his arm when Lucian suddenly cried out. For a moment, the figure continued to move, but suddenly all advancement stopped. Just as Hywel had finished his countdown, a hint of familiarity flashed across his mind. Was it the walk, the presence, or the signature top hat? The figure tilted its head before taking an abrupt step back. All at once, the dark energy around it lifted, and mutual recognition flooded across the figure and Lucian's faces.
I don't believe it. Sir Faust! What in the name of all of Zesbor are you doing out here?
Mr. Beckenbauer? I could ask you the same.
You know this gentleman, Lucian?
The tension in Hywel's voice had considerably lessened. Similarly, Ridge and Eleonora had dropped their focus from their weapons and redirected it toward Beckenbauer.
From the way he disappeared from the alleyway, I had assumed I wouldn't be seeing him ever again. What in the world is he doing out here?
Judging by the look on his face, Beckenbauer felt the same. There was a disheveled, jolting surprise plastered on his face that made him look like a rabbit caught in a trap. Of course, that wasn't the only thing odd about the man in his current state. His previously well-maintained clothing showed unmistakable signs of distress. Creases were folded up along his entire outfit, and the legs of his pants were stained with splotches of mud, as if he'd been running in a mad dash. But what struck Lucian as an even greater mystery were the dark figures behind the man, who even now stood stoically next to the bushes where Wendel had emerged.
Hywel, Ridge, Eleonora, this is Wendel Beckenbauer. He's a traveling doctor I met a few...
Sir Faust, I apologize for cutting you off so rudely, but there is no time. I fear you and your friends are in great danger. You must head back beyond the city walls.
Lucian felt a chill down his spine.
Danger? What kind of danger?
There is an enemy army approaching the capital at this very moment. You must warn the crown before they arrive.
Hywel held up a hand and gave a small shake of his head.
I am sorry, but I have no reason to believe you, even if you are familiar with Lucian. Though Giardia is not far from the Brandolf border, there is absolutely zero chance our scouts would miss an entire army passing through. And that's if we were to assume this alleged attack is even coming from there. An army would be swiftly reported to us at a moment's notice.
Wendel Beckenbauer showed no sign of distress in response. He simply nodded before reaching into his coat's inner pocket and pulling out a small satchel.
Such things are hard to believe, I can imagine. However, I assure you, this is no joke.
Beckenbauer opened the satchel and reached inside. With a pinching motion, a lightly colored dust was flung into the air.
Scrying dust! Only court mages have access to that!
Not if you know where to look. Now watch.
Hywel clenched his jaw shut and stared ahead toward the spot Beckenbauer had tossed the dust to. Scrying dust was a basic magic item that mimicked the effects of a scrying table and allowed the user to see some distance away. Though it lacked the range and longevity of the table, the dust was advantageous for on-the-go use. Lucian followed Hywel's gaze to the ground before them. After a brief moment, a puff of orange smoke billowed from the ground, revealing a desolate sight. Through the foggy cloud, countless numbers of soldiers marched in unison, flying a striking banner decorated with dual ravens on either side.
No, it can't be. Brandolf, I must warn Mother!
The young prince's eyes were glazed over as he placed a hand against his heart. Closing his eyes, Hywel breathed slowly through his nose and out through his mouth. Almost instantaneously, his composition changed. A furrow lined his brow, and his posture snapped to attention.
Sir Beckenbauer, by my authority as Crown Prince, I must demand your presence in the capital post-haste. Please show what you've discovered to my mother and father.
Beckenbauer stroked his chin, then simply shook his head.
Oh no, I'd rather not involve myself in this mess any further than I already have.
Sir, I must insist.
My answer was not up for debate.
Hywel glared at Beckenbauer, the tension between the two slowly beginning to rise. Lucian slowly readied his sword once more. Though he was still unable to decipher Beckenbauer's true intent, he would fight him if he had to. Hywel ground his teeth and spat at the ground before venturing back into the standoff.
If that's the case, may I ask that you at least accompany me to the safety of the city's walls? I would hate for an innocent bystander to get caught up in this mess.
I'm no bystander.
Ignoring any chance at response, Beckenbauer bowed before twirling around and waltzing back toward where he'd made his entrance.
Hey! I'm not finished speaking with you! Get back here this instant!
Hywel took a step forward, preparing to pursue the strange doctor. Just as his foot hit its first stride, the two dark figures flanking Beckenbauer stepped forward. Hywel unsheathed the blade at his hip and pointed it in a threatening manner.
Step aside! You are interfering with official—
Get out of the way!
Hywel whirled around as a blade came crashing down beside him. Lucian had spotted movement near the prince just in time. From the shadow of the woods around the lake, several heavily armed soldiers stepped into the clearing. These were not the same soldiers Beckenbauer had scried moments earlier. Their stone-gray armor blended in with the shadows, and there was a certain inhuman aspect about them. Their stances were rigid and uniform, almost to the point of being unsettling. In unison, Hywel, Ridge, Eleonora, and Lucian stood back to back, watching for any signs of attack.
Hywel, we need to get out of here and warn the city.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on, but it's not like we can fight them with simple hunting gear.
Hywel grimaced. As his grip tightened around his sword, he lamented his group's lack of preparedness.
I know that, but I can't just let that doctor get away. He knows something.
There won't be anything worth getting from him if the city is destroyed.
Fine. Retreat to the city. We must warn the guard.
Spurned by Hywel's word, the group sprinted back down the path they had originally come from. Lucian was sure the soldiers would give chase, but as he looked back, they stood eerily unmoved from the place they had emerged. As the lake disappeared from his view, Lucian could just barely make out the outline of Wendel Beckenbauer. The man stood among the soldiers, watching them. Stuck in a perpetual mad dash from the woods, none of the friends stopped to talk. Lucian's mind wandered to his family. He had to warn them. He had to save them.
Then, finally, I'll be useful.
As the walls of Giardia came into view, Lucian was relieved to see no signs of attack. As the group rushed through the front gate, Hywel looked frantically around for any signs of guards.
Inconceivable! Why is no one guarding the gate? I need to warn my mother. All of you should warn your families as well. And Lucian, I'll need a full report of your encounter with Wendel Beckenbauer in the coming days.
Of course. Once this is sorted out, I'll tell you everything.
Hywel, Ridge, and Eleonora rushed away toward Garrad Palace. Lucian watched them until they turned a corner, then took off toward his own home. The streets were strangely empty as Lucian sprinted through the streets. Just yesterday, there would have been a sea of bodies hindering his mad dash. Today, there were none. As Lucian spotted his house in the distance, his mind raced with distressing thoughts. Why did it seem like the last few days had been nothing but fate spitting in his eye? He could scarcely remember a time when he'd felt so unlucky. As he burst through the door, Lucian called out through the house, anxious for any response.
Hello? Is anybody here?
Lucian! Oh, thank goodness.
From the next room over, Ophelia peeked her head into the front landing, her face tense. When she saw her younger brother, the tension softened a bit, and she fully entered the room, followed closely by Elvira, Ravenna, and Oswin.
Listen, we've got trouble. There's an enemy army approaching the city.
Yes, we saw them from the top of the wall.
What? They're already here? Damn it, this isn't good.
Lucian briefly summarized the events in the woods in as much detail as he could without wasting time. When he mentioned the part about the Dark Knights, Ophelia's brow furrowed.
I've never heard of a group of knights with that kind of armor. I've got to see them myself.
See them for yourself? How exactly do you plan on doing that? I wouldn't exactly recommend going into the woods right about now.
Relax. I'm just going to check from the wall. If I can get even a distant look at their armor, I should be able to properly identify it. Watch them for a minute, will you?
Ophelia, I really don't think that's...
But Ophelia had already rushed past Lucian and out the door. Lucian cursed his sister for her rash decisions. It was infinitely better if the siblings stuck together, especially if the worst came to pass and the city was put under siege. Lucian was acutely aware that without the help of Ophelia, his ability to defend his siblings, or even his parents for that matter, would be quite limited.
Elvira, where are Mother and Father?
They should be at the palace. They had to make a delivery, and only left a short time ago.
I see. That's not such a bad thing, then. At least they'll be safe.
Are we going to be okay, Lucian?
Lucian glanced at Ravenna, whose smaller frame shook slightly. Lucian forced a smile and placed his hand on her head.
Of course we will. The Empire's got the best soldiers in all of Zespor. And besides, Ophelia and I will protect you.
Ravenna brightened a little and wrapped her arms around Lucian.
You promise?
Of course. And that goes for you both as well. Remember what I've told you for years now. As long as I'm around, nothing bad will ever happen to you.
If there was one thing in this world Lucian would protect with his life, it was his siblings. Though the thought of battle still terrified him, if it came down to it, he would lay everything on the line to keep their lives aflame. Bad things happened in this world. Lucian had seen them himself in the past 2 days. But at least in his mind, Lucian felt that if he could stay alongside his siblings, he could shelter them from those things that wished them harm. Resolve strengthened a bit. Lucian took a deep breath and relaxed. He'd been in a maddened state since the incident down at the lake.
If there is some kind of siege, I'll be of no good use unless I can calm down. If there is some kind of siege, I'll be of no good use unless I calm down. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And out. Breathe in. And...
Lucian, you've got to see this.
Lucian bit his tongue. Ophelia had suddenly burst through the door. causing the rest of the Faust siblings to nearly jump from their skin.
Ophelia! Is this really the time for yelling?
Sorry, I just wanted to show you what's going on.
Couldn't you have done it quieter then? Whatever. What is it?
Come and see. Her Majesty has sent a convoy of soldiers to speak with the army of Brandolf.
Lucian's curiosity was piqued. He'd never seen a proper army before, and a simple meeting was unlikely to end in bloodshed. However, there was a gnawing sense at the back of his mind that he should stay far away from such an event.
Don't you think that's a bad idea, Ophelia? A fight could break out at any moment.
Don't be ridiculous, Lucian. I'll give you a pass since you're still kind of an idiot. But Alec Brand would be a fool to attack Giardia hand-on like this. Our mages have a high ground superiority against an enemy with no magical support.
They didn't bring any mages?
Nope. At least not anywhere I can see. Now, come on. I want you to point out those soldiers who attacked you earlier.
Fine, but only for a moment. I don't like this one bit. Elvira, Oswin, Ravenna, I'll be right back. Remember what I told you.
The three younger siblings nodded, and Lucian and Ophelia headed to the northern wall of the city. Just under the sky's horizon, a near infinite number of soldiers carrying the banner of Brandolf Kingdom. A near infinite number of soldiers carrying the banner of the Brandolf Kingdom stood motionlessly at the ready. At the head of the formation, a man sat upon a magnificent steed.
That must be the king himself.
Even on the distant horizon, the majesty of King Bran was clear. A spiked crown rested on a mane of platinum white hair that draped down his back. The very way in which he rode atop his horse was menacing, as if at any moment he could force all before him to drop to a knee. The king dismounted and faced the convoy as their eventual meeting came closer and closer. The convoy slowed to a halt as he bowed before them. For the next few minutes, the air was deadly quiet. Though Lucian was unable to get a detailed view of their faces, the two parties seemed engaged in conversation. King Bran pulled a parchment from his pocket and handed it to the front member of the convoy. With a nod, the Venarian soldier raised his hand in the air and directed his troops back toward the city.
All right, Ophelia, I think that's enough of that. Let's go home.
The ground erupted beneath the convoy. Glossy blue spikes shot from the fractured earth, skewering man and horse alike. Blood rained from above, coating the plains with its droplets. Raising his hands above his head, the Brandolf king sent a volley of blue spikes toward the city.
Magic! Lucian, get down!
Ophelia tackled Lucian, knocking the two of them to the floor. The force of the impact sent Lucian gasping for air. But as his gaze met the city behind him, his breath left him entirely. Explosions tore through the stone brick buildings of the upper noble district, blasting debris into crowds of unsuspecting citizens. As the frequency of the explosions increased, chaos followed suit. Blood and viscera seeped from bodies pressed underneath large chunks of rubble. Hysterical victims ran ragged further into the city, pushing past anything in their way. Children were thrown to the ground, carts and stalls were toppled over, screams echoed through Giardia's walls, only to be drowned out by the next volley of explosions. Lucian staggered to his feet and stared at the grisly sight before him.
Ophelia? Ophelia? We need to get home! Now!
Grabbing hold of his sister's arm, Lucian took off down the street, weaving through the ever-growing death and destruction infecting the city. Ophelia felt lifeless as Lucian dragged her toward their home. Her body was limp, and she merely followed Lucian's lead as he charged ahead. Though he was unwilling to admit to himself the reason why, the death around him felt strangely familiar, almost normal.
I can see it. There, in the distance. We're almost home.
A large metal structure embedded itself in the street, sending the siblings off balance as rubble flew from its landing spot.
What on earth is that?
Lucian glanced toward Ophelia. She had seemed to have regained a grasp on herself, though, judging by the look of utter bewilderment on her face, she wasn't doing well. Lucian followed her eyes to the metal structure. The bottom was an oval-shaped cocoon, layered with sheets of black metal. At the top of the oval sat a bust of a young woman. The statue's face was misshapen and full of agony, carved tears streaming from its eyes. A pale gray smoke began pouring from the layers of the metal structure, obscuring it from view. Lucian stepped back slowly. In the chaos around them, he felt eerily alone. The only sound he could discern was that of his footsteps. With every step, he could sense each subtle movement. His eyes locked onto the smoke.
Why is this happening?
It was the first time the thought had crossed his mind.
First Beckenbauer, then the merchant quarter thief, then those armed guards in the forest, and now a full-on invasion? This is madness!
His ears caught it first, a second step in a different frequency from his own. Lucian's eyes flashed toward Ophelia's. She was standing utterly still, lowered in a defensive position. There was a different step, then another. The smoke cleared, revealing 3 hooded figures in its place. Their cloaks were raven black and flowed down past their knees. Their faces were hidden from view with pearlescent blue, ominous masks that had carvings of tentacles jutting out from their base. Lucian had never seen a piece of art quite so ill-boding. It was as if the presence of these masks alone was enough to invoke dread. The figures stood stiffly ahead of Lucian and Ophelia, stagnating in their movement.
I can't even tell if they're breathing. They just seem to be watching.
Slowly, Lucian brought a hand to the hilt of his sword. There was nothing overtly antagonistic about the figures, but the emotions they evoked alone were enough to tell Lucian all he needed to know about whether or not they were an enemy. Lucian felt an arm against his chest, which temporarily halted his escalation of action. To his left, Ophelia held her arm up and slowly shook her head.
No, Lucian. It isn't right to attack someone without reason.
The anguish in her eyes was sickening.
It's always better to...
Shut up! You think I want to hear any lecture coming from you right now? We wouldn't even be in this situation if you hadn't insisted on coming out here! Do you understand me? Elvira could be dead! Ravenna, Oswin, dead! Our parents, dead! And instead of being there for them, you brought me out to a war zone! After I warned you against it, too! But even so, I'm not gonna hold it against you, if we can save them. But the key is if. Do you really think we have time to discuss moral philosophies?
Lucian,
Ophelia trailed off, her gaze locked onto the 3 figures. The middle figure was pointing wildly toward Ophelia, contorting its back in a disfigured motion. Tears welling in her eyes, Ophelia gritted her teeth and drew her sword. In the next moment, the figure snapped to attention and charged the 2 siblings, its companions right at its heels. Lucian yanked his sword from its hilt and braced himself for an attack. Even with Ophelia by his side, Lucian doubted his capability in fending off an inevitable attack.
That doesn't matter. I will protect them!
The lead figure lunged forward, closing in on his position. Lucian moved to block out of pure instinct, but it was ultimately sloppy. After all, in the face of true swordsmanship, Lucian was still utterly
inept.
The lead figure easily maneuvered past his sad attempt at resistance and closed in for the kill.
Behind you!
A blast of hot air came hurling past Lucian, knocking him to the ground. Lucian's eyes shot open. The first masked figure lay directly ahead of him, its cloaked chest smoldering in white flames. The 2 other figures had stopped their charge and had switched their focus to an unknown party positioned behind him.
Lucian! Are you okay?
Lucian scrambled to his feet, where Ophelia was still standing beside him.
I'm fine. What just happened?
I don't know, but there's someone very strong behind us, Lucian.
Ah, thank you for the compliment, Ophelia. I'd return the sentiment, but I believe there's little time for such things. Now, prepare yourselves, you utter fools.
With a whoosh, 2 more shots rang past Lucian and connected squarely in the chests of the remaining figures. As the figures collapsed to the ground, Lucian and Ophelia's savior walked nonchalantly past them to the final resting place of their victims. Pulling off the masks one by one, the savior studied the figures' faces closely, frowning when no hint of recognition crossed their mind. With a quick shake of their head, the savior turned to face Lucian and Ophelia. Of course, by now Lucian had realized that this was no mere simple savior. No, he recognized this person very well. It was none other than the Empress of the Voneros Empire herself, Cerridwyn Garrad.
Your Majesty! Thank you. You saved our lives.
I am glad to be of assistance. I only hope I am in time to stop this madness for good. Launching capsules full of assassins over our walls. What a disgraceful thing to do.
Ophelia kneeled before the Empress, bowing her head in utter admiration. Lucian couldn't follow. Truthfully, he was petrified. How was it that he continuously found himself closer and closer to death? In the blatant face of the ever-growing pit within his stomach, all he could do to manage was half-heartedly lean against the nearest building and take a breath. Lucian drowned out the explosions that continued to ravage the city and shook off his anxiety, something he'd gotten quite good at over the last few days. Slapping his cheeks, he took the time to think over the situation at hand. Though he feared the tenacity of Brandoff and the wicked plots of its king, his mind kept returning to the mysterious Wendel Beckenbauer. What purpose could he have in hiding out in the forest with a group of armed guards? And how had he known about the incoming attack? No matter how Lucian looked at it, it seemed a deeper conspiracy was afoot.
Once again, I find myself way over my head. When this is finally over, I swear I'm not going outside for a month.
Lucian, we shouldn't stay here any longer. Let's get back home.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I just had to catch my breath.
Lucian was cut off by a new voice, one that was quite surprisingly recognized.
Garrad, Your Majesty, I bring urgent news. Enemy magic has broken through the prison's walls and started a riot. Sir Esmond rushed off to contain it, but there's confusion among the ranks about how to proceed.
It was the messenger from the palace who had interrupted his conversation with Emrys and Hywel. Gone was the bumbling clumsiness that had characterized her person of the day prior. Left in its place was a sort of calm indifference.
Can you handle the prison with Sir Kemp? I am more than capable of reinforcing the garrison myself.
Can I handle it? Who do you think you're talking to? Of course I can handle it.
Not just anyone could backtalk an empress like that, and certainly not some lowly messenger. It seemed that once again Lucian had discovered something he had no business discovering, although he wasn't exactly sure what that something was.
Hey you, kid! You got something to say to me?
No. Sorry about that.
I can't stand being out in the open like this. I'm out of here.
Suit yourself. Be careful out there.
With a brief nod, the messenger took off down the street.
I must go as well. Ophelia, can I expect you to join me?
Ophelia glanced toward Lucian before responding.
Let me make sure everything is alright at home first. It'll only take a minute. I promise.
Take your time. I understand. Join me at the front gate as soon as you're able.
Of course. Thank you, Your Majesty. Come on, Lucian. Let's go.
Right.
It seemed Lucian's anger toward Ophelia had steeled her resolve. Lucian was slightly disappointed at himself for lashing out at her, like he had. But he had only said what had been embedded in his mind since the attack had begun.
I definitely could have worded it better, though. I'll have to apologize to her later.
The siblings left the side of the Empress and resumed their journey home, albeit with a new sense of caution. There was no telling if another attack from the sky would befall them. Lucian could feel his heart in his chest as they drew closer and closer to their destination.
Just a few more corners and we're there. Everything will be fine once we get home. I just know it.
Lucian, look!
Ophelia was pointing wildly off the side of the outer wall. The area below had turned to carnage as a full-blown battle had broken out between the conflicting powers. The earth was stained with blood as soldier after soldier seemed to fall dead amongst the chaos. And at the center of it all,
The Tyrant King.
the man wielded a studded great axe, which he effortlessly swung with grace and precision, cutting down any and all who dared get in his way.
He's a monster, but look at that skill.
Lucian moved to the wall's edge, studying the mastery before him.
He's incredible, all right. Which is all the more reason I need to get down there. If we don't do something soon, he'll single-handedly change the tides of the battle against us.
Lucian turned to face Ophelia, his back against the wall protecting them from the battle below.
You're right. But Ophelia, let me just say one thing before we keep going.
Go ahead, Lucian.
I'm sorry for lashing out. As you know, I've had a rough couple of days, and I'm, well, really worried about their safety, so...
I understand, Lucian. And, don't worry, I wasn't mad or anything. You were right. I made a mistake, even ignoring that I was being too passive, considering the situation.
I'm not surprised. I've felt passive my entire life. But I've been beaten around a lot recently, both mentally and physically. And it's made me think quite a bit. After I hide indoors for a couple of weeks, avoiding any possible dangers, I think I'll train harder. And, Ophelia, I promise you, on my honor as a member of the Faust family, and as your brother, that I...
You'll what? Lucian, what's wrong?
Lucian's heart nearly erupted from his chest as his blood ran frigid. Directly behind Ophelia were the three masked figures from earlier.
How is this possible? No! Ophelia, look out!
Lucian lunged forward and rocketed past Ophelia, his sword drawn. Bracing his body, he swung down hard at the frontal figure.
I don't care anymore! I'll defeat you! No matter what!
In a flash, the figure had cocked back its leg and shot it directly toward Lucian's chest. With a resounding crack, the blow connected, sending Lucian flying back into the outer wall. He gasped as all the air left his body, leaving him clutching at his throat as he struggled to breathe. With Lucian incapacitated, the figures turned their attention toward Ophelia, who had entered a defensive stance guarding over Lucian's body, lying in a heap at the base of the wall. Glancing over her shoulder, Ophelia could plainly see that the battle outside of the city was spiraling out of control. Alec Brand cut through night after night, drawing closer to the outer gate. The situation was dire, but at this point she couldn't care less about Alec Brand.
You fiends! How dare you hurt him!
Ophelia charged the figures at breakneck speed, making quick strikes toward the slightest openings the figures gave her. Lucian squinted his eyes as his consciousness began to fade.
No. I can't pass out now. If I do, Ophelia, she'll...
With every ounce of his being, Lucian fought back against his fading vision and staggered to his feet, body crying out in protest.
I won't quit. I can't quit. I will protect you. I will... Huh? What was that? Ophelia? No. Ophelia's still fighting. But then, what was that sound?
Ophelia had caught wind of Lucian's call. Launching herself away from the figures, she made space to glance at Lucian's direction. Only, when she did, her sword immediately slipped from her hand and fell to the earth.
What? Why did she... Stop!
The moment the sword had touched the paved tile below her, the figures were on top of Ophelia, restraining her to the ground. Ophelia's mouth moved as if to cry out, but he was unable to hear her. He was unable to hear anything.
Ophelia! I'll save you!
Lucian's mind screamed out to the rest of his body, urging it to move forward, but it wouldn't budge.
Why? Why can't I move? Am I stuck? Am I scared? No. I'm impaled.
Lucian's eyes had moved away from Ophelia's and toward the apparent cause of his idleness. Directly in his chest spouted a blue spear, entirely magic in origin. He'd been shot by a mage. Lucian's body lurched as he reeled backward, almost as if his entire body had jumped in shock. As his shoulders passed through the air unhindered, the rest of his body followed, sending Lucian over the outer wall's edge and into nothing.
Nothing? That doesn't make sense. You can't feel nothing. If you feel nothing, then... that's it. I'm falling.
Lucian's last image of Giardia was Ophelia, and the tears that streamed down her face as the figures dragged her deeper into the city. Lucian's brief life flashed through his eyes as he plummeted toward the ground. Lucian's brief life flashed through his eyes as he plummeted toward the ground. Up until a few days ago, he had had his whole life lined up for him, taking over the family business. Well, it had always been his dream, but that wasn't right, was it? That wasn't right, was it? It was more of a crutch than anything. A predetermined role he'd have no real control over upon accepting it as his duty. But that's what he wanted, right? He'd always thought that. Why was this the thing he thought of in moments before his death?
I could have declined the job, become something more, protected my family, just like Ophelia. Ophelia, I'm sorry. All I ever wanted was to be like you.
With a resounding crack, Lucian Faust hit the ground.